Okay, I am finally getting around to making these how to sail videos. It's only been 2 light years since I said I was going to do it. I'm not really going to make this a theory video because nobody actually cares about that, I think, so I'm just going to show you what I actually do to get the boat ready to sail, how I pick up the anchor, start the engine, check everything, and sail, and then anchor. So first things first, we're going to get the outboard off the dinghy onto the boat. I can do this with a crane, but I just choose not to because the engine's not very heavy. It's only 23 kilos and the boat's low, so I usually just pick it up off the back, flip it upside down, and it's tied up, of course, to the cleat. Foot on the dinghy, outboard on the dinghy, foot on the boat, hand on the rail, lift it up. It looks kind of awkward, but it's actually fairly easy. I'll set this in the cockpit until all the water drains out of it. When I'm sailing, I just pick up my dinghy on the side of the boat in the cockpit, deflate it, fold it up, and stick it on the bow where I tie it down. My dinghy is made by TrueKit. Served me really well so far. I can go about 20 knots at wide open throttle. Does really well upwind, better even on a beam, and so far so good. Every time I start the engine, I check a few things. Number one is fuel quality, make sure there's no gunk in the filter, looks good, and then I also check the oil level. It looks low, but it's not. It's only because the engine's hot right now, so there's still oil float around. But I'm gonna get this started and then show you how to pick up the anchor. Okay, now I'm going to get the boat prepared to sail. First thing, of course, is to take off the cover for the mainsail. It's really easy. Got this nice stack pack, which takes away a lot of the drama. Then I'm gonna get the wind vane paddle so I don't have to hand steer the whole time. This is probably the most useful thing I have in the boat for solo sailing. Without this, I never would have gotten as far as I did. With this, you just put it in that little groove, screw it in, and then there's a backup line just in case. I'll show you how to use this in a little bit. Because it's such a short trip, I'm just gonna leave the outboard here and tie it onto the rail. It's also good practice just to jump in the water every time you anchor, check for things in the surrounding area like coral, rocks, debris, anything, to make sure that you don't catch on anything. It's especially important when you're trying to leave, because if you're leaving in a rush and then you grab a rock or something and you pull hard on the windlass, you can damage the windlass or the bowsprit. So it's good practice. I'm going to jump in now. I think it's also worth mentioning that whenever you anchor, you want as much scope out as you can. Scope is the amount of anchor road you have out compared to the depth of the water. So if it's 30 feet deep, ideally you want at least 5-to-1 scope, which is 150 feet of anchor rope and chain. So in this situation, it's about 30 feet deep. I've got about 180 feet out just because I let out usually as much as I can. Sometimes you can't let out 5-to-1 scope because of surrounding boats or rocks or anything like that. But in the ideal situation, you want 5-to-1, 4-to-1's okay too. 3-to-1 works sometimes, especially if it's deeper. But usually, you just want to let out as much as you can. Got the engine running. Because the windlass takes so much power, I'm also going to start my generator just to not drain the batteries. Now first, I just let out some slack so that the slack doesn't get eaten by my fingers. Put that into the gypsy. Make it tight by hand. If you make it too tight, you can damage this, but I think as long as it's not tighter than I can do by hand, it's fine. Then I'll wait for the bowsprit and the rope to be straight, just to get any extra tension off. Then I'll use my little foot switch. Having this windlass is such a big deal. When I didn't have it, it was truly a nightmare getting anchor up every time. Here comes the chain. It doesn't always like to go over by itself. So I'll just grab it, pull it by hand. Once it's here, the chain starts to pull the boat forward by itself. So you can usually wait 5 to 10 seconds, it'll start to slack. And then it becomes very obvious when the anchor is not touching the bottom anymore because the boat will start dragging and drifting downwind. I want to do that when the boat's facing that way instead of this way, because naturally it'll sail whichever way it's pointed, and I'd like to go that way as opposed to into the rock. When I get close to getting all the chain up, I run back to the cockpit, put the engine into forward so that I take most of the strain off of the anchor chain and the windlass. Run back up fast as I can, start pulling the anchor. If you do this fast enough, the anchor chain itself kind of guides the boat into the right direction. And with this new one, it actually is fast enough sometimes to do it. So we'll see how it goes. If the anchor's off the bottom now, I'm gonna give it 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now I'm gonna run back and get the boat steering where I want it to so that I don't hit a rock. Okay, got it pointed the right direction, so headed back up here, pick up the rest of the anchor. My fear doing this kind of thing is that if it caught on a bommy or something while I was going forward to try to get it up, it could be bad, really bad. But anchor's on the bowsprit, it's all good. Now I head off. I usually just do a quick scan of the surroundings on the chart. Looks all good. I'm gonna keep going out for a minute or so, then turn left to avoid this big bommy here. That's pretty much just straight to the marina with a bunch of stuff along the way to not hit. I like to get all the sails up when I'm still in calm water, get the halyard winch on. I'll also let my wind vane paddle down. Okay, got the paddle in the water, took 2 hands, but basically that just goes in and then you point this into the wind eventually. I'll go more into that later. Okay, I'm gonna turn up into the wind now, put the boat into idle, and get my mainsail up. This is the halyard right here, it's called. It's the line that pulls it from the top of the mast upwards. The most important thing here is that you point directly into the wind when you're getting the sail up. So there's a nice wind shadow now. Perfect opportunity. The best way to tell if you're into the wind or not is just if the sail is in the middle of the 2 lazy jacks on the side of it. The lazy jacks are what the sail fall into when it's being dropped, but easy peasy. Starting to flop, so I'm gonna pull it up. Back the other way. Okay, sail's up. Now I let the main sheet out. Again, I'll talk more about this stuff later. I'm just doing this in a way that will help me prevent hitting a rock. Well, I'm out here now and there's not really much wind. It's a bit awkward, but there's enough. Immediately after saying that, the wind picked up, so I'm gonna kill the engine. I have the wind vane set, so these 2 lines are controlling the tiller, and I'm steering upwind. Of course, it's always upwind, but I'll show you how the wind vane works. I think as soon as I'm back in the marina, it's kind of hard to explain it while I'm sailing. Jib is the sail up front. It's what provides most of the power, and the mainsail here provides most of the trim. It's on now. So to let the jib out, there's a furling line which goes up to the front and connects to the drum, which allows you to pull it in and out from back in the cockpit. And then there's the sheet, which is over here. This is what actually pulls the jib out and controls the tension. So I let one out with one hand, the furling line out, and then the sheet I pull with the other hand. It takes a while to get used to it when you're first learning, but it's pretty simple, especially on a boat this small where you don't even really need winch handles most of the time. Now I'll give a very simplified explanation of sail trim. When you're going into the wind, you want everything as tight as you can have it. When the wind is on your side, you want everything in between, meaning the head sail is let out partially and the mainsail is let out partially. I usually reef the mainsail when I'm going on a beam reach, just because it makes things way more balanced. And when I'm going downwind, I usually take down the mainsail altogether so that the boat doesn't try to round up into the wind, and I just use the jib, which is let out all the way. Another rule of thumb I use is that the jib should typically be at a 90-degree angle to where it attaches on the furler. And when you're sailing, you sort of think of the sails as the engine, so if there's too much wind, you want less power, which means you make the sail smaller. In order to do that, you come up to the front, pull the front of the sail down, and then I have lines that run back to the cockpit, which pull the back of the sail down. Pull on these, and you clutch them, makes the sail smaller. Usually I'm fairly conservative because it's harder to do everything when you're alone, and especially at night, I don't have very much sail up. Those are sort of the basics of sail trim. I could get more into it, and maybe I'll talk about it with old footage. But yeah, going downwind, you let the sails out. Going upwind, you let the sails, or you tighten the sails as much as you can, and then that's about it. With the wind vane, this is where the paddle goes. You aim that paddle into the wind. So if the wind was coming directly from that way, you'd point it into the wind. That means the boat is beamed to the wind. It's on the side. If the boat goes off course, that changes the way the wind hits this paddle, which means it would go to one direction like that, which then moves this gear down here. When that gear moves, the paddle, once it's in the water, changes angles, of course, and then it pulls the ropes to one direction because it wants to go that way or straight. And these ropes lead back to the tiller. The tiller is this, it's what you steer with. You attach these here, or in there, and then when that paddle moves in the water, it moves the tiller, and this is what allows you to sail without electricity and not having to hand steer, basically. Some other important pieces of equipment for solo sailing are the D-rings and the jack lines, which allow you to clip into the boat when you're sailing. This is especially important by yourself, because if you fall off, you will die. Also important is the AIS, the Automatic Identification System. This connects to your chart plotter through the VHF radio and shows you where their boats are so you can avoid hitting them. This isn't really sailing, but I'm going to show you anyways because I think it's interesting. And one of these days I'm going to drop it, so might as well start filming it every time. To take off the drone, I just get the motor started, wait 5 seconds or so. If you don't do that, it'll fall into the water. I've almost made that mistake. Do a tiny bit of throttle, and then I just throw it. Okay, now to catch it, it'll be an easy one because the wind is nice and calm, but I bring it in as slowly as I can with the back facing me. That way I have as obvious of control as I can. And then, once I got the altitude, I just bring it in to the bottom of it and flip it right away. If you don't flip it right away, it'll just try to take off, and it actually pulls pretty hard. Wind is starting to die, so I'm going to go back, start the autopilot, show you how to do that. The wind has pretty much died. I'm motor sailing now, got an hour and a half left to go. I'll show you how the autopilot works. It's pretty straightforward. It attaches to the bottom of the tiller here on a little pin, and then I just hold it on using these claw cleat things and a bungee cord. And then to steer it, it's just left or port, right or starboard, and this turns on autopilot, off autopilot. This thing works great as long as the seas aren't too rough. If they are, then it just gets overpowered, but the good news is if the seas are rough, then it's probably the wind vane that's going to be steering. Okay, I'm almost to my anchorage, so I'm going to drop the mainsail. To do that, I basically do the same thing as getting it up, except the other way. So I'm pointing into the wind now. So I'll wait for the sail to start flapping. That, and I just drop the halyard, which is that blue line I was showing you earlier, and let it fall down. Now I'm going to show you how to drop anchor by yourself. I'm approaching this island right here. There's a reef here, so I'm going to go around it and then find the protection up there by that beach. The first thing I do is run up to the front and get the anchor off. of the bowsprit by hand, so I'll do that as soon as I point into the wind. Okay, I usually wait as long as I can to do this part, because the longer you wait, the smaller the waves get, because typically when you're anchoring as close to the beach as you can. And I don't wear a harness when I'm doing this, because if I did up here and I fell off, then I'd much rather just watch the boat run into shore without me on it struggling to get off. So anchor's down now, and I'm gonna run back and choose my anchoring location. Now I'm gonna take the autopilot off so I can maneuver more easily. That's really easy on this boat. And then I'm going to just motor forward, choose my spot. Usually I like to go as shallow as I can because I don't have that much anchor chain and rope. Okay, I'm liking this spot, so I'm gonna lock the tiller into the middle, put the engine into idle, and then run forward. As the boat drifts back, I come up here, release the clutch, and drift. Okay, I've gotten to the rope, that's where I want to be. I'm going to tie it off, the cleat hitch, and see how I drift back. When you anchor, it's always good to back down on it to make sure it's dragging, or not dragging I mean. To do that, you just go into reverse. I usually go to about 2,000 RPM, and then just see if it sticks. I already know it's going to because it's windy and it's soft sand, but that's just good practice. And also, every time I shut off my engine, I bring it up to full throttle just a few times. And I do this to get all the excess carbon out of the engine, so you don't end up with, clogged cylinders and all that. So just every time I stop it, do a few revs to full, leave it there for a few seconds, and ideally that'll prevent problems in the future. After 2 weeks in Canada with my family, I hope you enjoyed that how to sail video. Hopefully you learned something from it. It might have been more simple than some you wanted, but it's what I could make at the time. Maybe I'll make a more detailed one in the future. Thanks for watching. I'm gonna get the boat back in the water in about 5 days after some projects and then set sail again. So I'll see you next time. Thanks.